Want to talk briefly about Apocalypse. People are upset because he's not a world beater, which I get, right? Everybody said, hey, we've been grinding for this dude. The Horsemen have been amazing. He should be stronger and better. He should be unbeatable. So I appreciate that people are a little upset, but we want to be careful with these terms. We want to be careful with terms like unbeatable, right? You got to be careful what you wish for because you just might get it. Obviously, I don't have my Apocalypse yet. I got a couple people to top off when it comes to my Darkhold, and then mine will be ready to go. But let's just talk a little bit about the history of some of these characters to make sure we understand what we're talking about. One of the first game-changing characters to come to the game was Ultron. And at the time, the only PvP mode that really existed was Arena. So if you had Ultron, he drew a line in the sand in the Arena meta. If you did not have him, it was incredibly difficult to get by somebody else who did. I don't want to say it was impossible. It wasn't. We looked hard, we thought hard, we came up with teams. If you had stronger teams, sometimes you could overpower them, but it was incredibly difficult. He drew a line in the sand between the haves and the have-nots, and it created a problem in the game. It created a problem to the point that Black Bolt was created with the intent of beating Ultron, and he had to get dialed way up. He was really strong when he came out, but that was the only way they could figure at that time to equalize the character of Ultron, because he was indeed so impactful. Again, he made it so if you didn't have him, you couldn't get past him. That was fun for like 2 minutes. And then you were just stuck, right? You were just stuck trying to get through dark dimensions so you yourself could get an Ultron. And until that time, there was nothing you could do. Your arena progress was pretty much done. So with that in mind, when the next character came out, the next dark dimension favorite, Dr. Doom, when he came out, yeah, he changed the game for sure. You had to use him in arena, but now at least you had a question of how things were going to go. We have other game modes at this point now. We had war at this point now. So Dr. Doom came into the game. At first, yeah, he was unbeatable, but people thought about it. They theory crafted. They figured out, okay, if we get that ability block on him, we can get past it, because he's a ticking time bomb, right? He's a ticking time bomb. When he does this thing, kaboom, and you're going to take a ton of damage. So you either had to figure out a way to absorb that damage or stop him from going off. When people figured that out, at least it wasn't a line in the sand. You didn't have to have Dr. Doom to be able to beat Dr. Doom. If he showed up on war defense, same thing. You didn't have to have him to beat him. You had to understand his kit, but it didn't draw such a big line in the sand. He was definitely impactful. He showed up on a ton of teams. He's still in the game right now, but it didn't draw a line in the sand the way Ultron did, and I think Scopely did that on purpose. They did not want a repeat of that solid brick wall that you can't get past. Okay, so then Dormammu comes to the game. He also had a time bomb mechanic, kind of like Doom, but he really brought the revive once. That's what he brought to the table, the revive once. So now you had to beat the enemies twice. So that's tough. You got to go through 2 health bars, 2 cycles of abilities if you're not careful on your opponent. And that was hard. That was hard to deal with. But again, Scopely realized they don't want a giant brick wall just sitting there in Arena or any the other game modes. We got War. Now we got Crucible. And even more recently in Crucible, they made adjustments to discourage you. They don't want you to put Dormammu on defense because it just prolongs things and makes it tough to beat. They don't want that. Right? They already learned their lesson. You don't want an unstoppable brick wall. You want them to be tough, but you don't want people to get stuck and not be able to move. So Dormammu, again, he comes in, he changes the game, but we learn about his kit. We learn what has to happen. Scopely's already given us things that negate revive once, or once you knock a dude out, he's gone. You can do that with Kestrel, Weaver, Kang. So they're giving us the tools to beat it, because they don't want stuff like that sitting on offense. They'd rather want you to have it. They want you to have it at your disposal to drop the bomb, to drop a trump card down so you can erase a team with these meta tunes. They don't want the meta tunes, again, causing it so people can't progress. Now, if you want to talk about unbeatable teams, Heroes for Hire. I don't know how far some of you guys go back, but when Heroes for Hire first entered, there was no counter. There was no Weapon X. There was no Dark Hunters. I mean, we were scrambling, bro. We were scrambling. You had to somehow see if you could get the last hit with Black Bolt. That was your best option to try to get one of them to stay down. So people had, on war defense, people would have 5, 10, 15, more, 19 defensive wins because you could not punch through this team. If you had significant power into them and there was a disparity between what you had in the next group, that was it. You hit their Heroes for Hire and it was over, right? So just think about that. Somebody who absorbs 15 attacks, that's just one. It took 15 hits to get one, and there's 23 more to go. That's a problem. And this team can still pose a problem today, right? At significant power. If you don't have a matching Weapon X, you're going to have a problem with that team in war. And so I'm fairly sure Scopely, they just don't want that to continue to happen. So they didn't want to make Apocalypse so overwhelmingly strong on the defensive end that people are stuck. Well, then you wouldn't use him anyway. Think about it. If you got to put him on defense, then you got to put him on defense because he'd be so dope. You want, instead, people don't like that, right? People want to be able to play with the character. So instead, they want him to be more offensively minded. And with those thoughts, if we consider Apocalypse, should he be better than he is? I think people are expecting him to be better. And Scopely, generally, they don't have a problem with that, right? They're reworking. They reworked Rebirth twice to make sure that they were awesome. So if they got to put some reworks in on Apocalypse, I'm sure they don't mind that either. It's just we as a player base, right? The crybabiness has to slow down. The crybabiness has to slow down. What do you actually want the character to do? Do not say that you want him to be unbeatable, because that's not what you want. You think it is, but it's not what you want. So what do you want the character to be able to do? Right? Should he be a trump card that you can just throw in, a nice plug and play? You can just put him down and help erase one of your opponents? Because Arena is not the only game mode now. We got War, we got Crucible, and probably there's other stuff coming. So what do you actually want out of your Apocalypse? What do you realistically want him to be able to do? There are a couple of people. We heard a video from Dorky Dad. We've seen Benny Westside. We've seen the LVP show some videos about things that he can indeed do right now and some really good suggestions to make him better. So if you have some suggestions, let them be known. Let them be known. Let's get this picked up and tweaked up so our Apocalypse can be the world beater that he's supposed to be.